How to Pay for the Green New Deal by Yeva Nersisyan and Randall Wray. Costing the Green New Deal. The American Action Forum, AAF, led by the former director of the Congressional Budget Office, Douglas Holtz Aiken, is the source of an oft-cited Green New Deal cost estimate of $93 trillion. The authors of the report admit, quote, the breadth of the proposal suggests that there will be large spillovers among them, as well as macroeconomic impacts. This would imply that an ideal analysis would be to consider them simultaneously. End quote. Holtz, Aiken et al., 2019. And although they simply do a policy-by-policy analysis for each of the components of the Green New Deal, it has not prevented the opponents of the Green New Deal from adding all the financial costs of the various programs and latching onto the $93 trillion number to argue that it is wishful thinking at best and a terrible policy that will bankrupt our grandchildren at worst. What we do here is what Holtz Aiken and his co-authors failed to do. We consider the resource savings that will accrue from the various programs, as well as the resource costs of Green New Deal programs, to determine whether at the end of the day the Green New Deal would be affordable in terms of the available resources. As we demonstrate, some parts of the Green New Deal are resource creating, and it is highly misleading to simply tally the projected dollar costs. For example, we note that the highest costs from the estimates of the Green New Deal accrue due to the economic agenda, including the job guarantee and the expansion of Medicare, which together are supposed to cost between $42 trillion and $81 trillion. As we will show below, both of these programs mobilize resources for the other components of the Green New Deal. As such, it makes no sense to count them as net costs to be summed to obtain a number like $93 trillion. To be clear, we do recognize that implementation of the Green New Deal will shift spending from the private sector to the government sector. However, unless there is an a priori reason to believe this would, by itself, be inflationary, we take the position that in the general case, it makes no difference in terms of inflation whether the dollar spent to hire resources comes from the government or from the private sector, which is also the method used by Keynes. As Stephanie Kelton says, cash registers do not discriminate. Indeed, as we report below, there is strong evidence that at least in the healthcare sector, a dollar of government spending buys more care than a dollar of private spending. So shifting toward government as the single payer would produce disinflationary pressure. Further, in what follows, we do not assume that we need to raise taxes simply because government spending rises. The position we take is that taxes should be raised to fight inflation that will result from excess demands on resources. We would not raise taxes merely to balance spending with tax revenue. If more spending does not generate inflationary pressure, we do not need to raise taxes. In any event, we argue below that tax hikes are not necessarily the best way to counteract inflationary pressures should they arise.